I usually say that all of us are leaders. And I don't know whether my guest today is going to agree with me on that. This is Now Tell Us. I'm your host, Anthony Muirore. At Now Tell Us, we have guests come and tell us stories. They come and inspire us. They come and educate us on a subject. And always we have a great time here with our great guests. Always we have great guests. And when I say always, today we have a great guest who is known as Jann Freed. She has written a book that we are going to talk about. And because she's the one who is going to tell us, because this is Now Tell Us. Now, why don't you join me as we go to meet her? But remember to share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question, please ask. If you have any comment you want to make, we love a feedback. So thank you in advance, whether you're watching this live or the recorded version or listening to it on any of the platforms that we are. So let me not talk much. Let me go, and I'm inviting you to go with me to meet our guest today, Jann Freed. Here we go. Hi, Jann.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome to Now Tell Us.
I can't wait to tell you.
Yes, we are waiting, eagerly waiting to hear what you have to tell us today.
Okay.
Yeah, but before we go deeper into the episode, can we know where is it in the world that you are at?
Well, I live in Des Moines, Iowa. Des Moines is the capital of Iowa. We
Okay.
call ourselves, the center of the Midwest of the United States. So that's where I am. It's 9:45 in the morning here. What time is it for you, Anthony?
It's 5:45 in the evening
Okay. All
here in
right.
Athens, Greece.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to get Greece is on my bucket list. So it's on my places to go. And I've wanted to go there ever since. Now, this is an old movie, but I've wanted to go there ever since Shirley Valentine went there. Now, it's an
Okay.
old movie and it's called Shirley Valentine. But anyway, so it's on my list.
I've never watched that, but I can
You need to
assure you,
watch it, Anthony. You need to watch it.
I can imagine it was a good movie.
It was a good movie.
So I'm gonna put that on my list of the things that I will do in the near future. Meanwhile, you're most welcome to Greece. If you find me here, I'll be welcome. I'll be ready and looking
Well,
forward.
that's very nice. That's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. So it's good that you've come to Now Tell Us. And I asked with I mean, I started the episode with a thought maybe you're not going to agree with me that every one of us is a leader. That's what I usually say, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, I do, Anthony, I do agree with you because I say that too.
Mm-hmm.
The most important person to lead is ourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, it really starts with the self. And how are we leading our own lives? And are we living and leading in a way that others want to follow?
Mm-hmm.
And so we can talk more about that. But I agree
Yes,
with you, Anthony. You're right on target, in my opinion.
yes. And so today we are going to talk about how great leaders live a life worth remembering. So
Yes.
this goes out to every one of you who's listening or watching. You are a leader and you need to live a life that is worth remembering.
Yes.
But maybe not only being your own leader, you may be heading an organization, ministry, a company. This is your episode. Stay right there because I am confident that Jann has a lot to tell us today.
Well, thank you. And, really, the concept of my book, what makes it different is the book is really about legacy.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes it different is my concept of breadcrumb legacy. And that's a concept I've trademarked. And so I thought I'd just start off by defining that. my previous book was called Leading with Wisdom, Sage Advice from 100 Experts.
No.
So both of my books are based on qualitative research where I've interviewed some of the top thought leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the chapters that emerged from the research in Leading with Wisdom was Leaders Live Their Legacy. And I found when I did workshops and speaking engagements that that was a chapter that really resonated with people. So I would
Mm-hmm.
ask people, when do we leave our legacy? And people would say, well, when we leave a job, when we retire, when we leave the earth, when we die. And I'd say, absolutely, that's all true. But
Mm-hmm.
what about when I leave this workshop? I leave this speaking engagement. What about, you leave a meeting, you leave an encounter, you leave a conversation. We're leaving our legacy all the time
Mm.
in bite-sized pieces. And so I just came up with the phrase breadcrumb legacy. So we're
Mm.
leaving it all the time and it adds up, it accumulates. So that's where I get the concept.
Wow, that's very good. I love that. And it's good that you mentioned that. I bring the concept of the fact that many of us always look for that time when we are going to appreciate someone when they are no longer on this world, on
That's
the
right.
planet. Now,
Right.
whereas we should be looking every day of the things that the people are doing and appreciate each and every one of them. So, if I take your concept and look at my everyday associations as breadcrumbs, right?
Yes.
I would face life differently, and every one of us would face life differently.
Yes, I think that's a good point. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is I call this book my COVID book
Mm-hmm.
because, workshops, speaking engagements, consulting, that really kind of came to a halt during COVID, like many other
Mm.
restaurants and businesses.
Yeah.
So I decided, well, I'm going to dive into this book. And what's interesting is COVID really brought death and legacy kind of front and center. All of a sudden, people of all ages were thinking about, what difference am I making? Is
Mm-hmm.
this really what I want to be doing? Is this how I want to spend my time? Which then kind of manifests itself into, the great resignation or quiet quitting, or, people really questioning how they were spending their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the timing is perfect for this book. And I
Yeah.
think it's timeless. I also think this book is timeless. It's not the flavor of the month, it isn't anything trendy. It's just really practical.
Wonderful, and thank you for coming up with it. Now, tell us more of what really drove you into writing it. Was it just that you found yourself confined in a place, or was there something going on
Yeah.
and you said, okay, this is a sign that I should put this down, I should write a book?
Yeah. Well, as I said, that chapter, Leaders Live Their Legacy, really resonated with people. And so I thought,
Okay.
I'm going to do a deep dive into that topic.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So then I interviewed more people, did more research. And, basically, each chapter is a component of what I think it really takes to live a life worth remembering.
Mm-hmm.
So I have chapters such as, what's going to get you up in the morning, which is about meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I have a chapter called Who's Going to Help You Move the Couch, which is really about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I have a chapter called Embrace Death, which is about death, dying, loss, grief. So, these are all kinds of concepts that if you really want to live a life worth remembering, these are concepts that you can really focus on and grasp. And at the end of each chapter, then I have what I call breadcrumb ingredients
Mm-hmm.
for applying the concept chapters, or the chapter concepts, I should say. So, through these ingredients, it gives you ideas on what to do. So that again, I think adds to what really makes the book practical and applicable.
Okay, that's good. And I'm wondering, do you share stories of the people you interviewed in the chapters, or,
Yes,
or how
yes.
did it go?
So then within each chapter, I have several what I call breadcrumb boxes,
Okay.
kind of like a bread box, but breadcrumb boxes. And in these boxes, then I share actual stories that my interviewees shared with me.
Okay. For example, Why get up in the morning? Tell us what's going on there. And
Okay, all right.
yeah, that's the bread.
So, regardless of your age or stage of life, what is it that gets you up in the morning? We could just lay in bed all day, particularly if someone's retired, they've left their career or they're laid off or whatever. We could just lay in bed all day. But,
Mm,
what is your passion? What is it? How how are you going to contribute? And one of the things that I define is um, I define work, and I define work as contribution. How do you want to contribute to the world?
mhm,
You may be retired, so therefore it may be volunteer, it may be part-time, it may be an encore career, so you've started another career, it's full-time. But how do you want to contribute? And so when you think about what's going to get you up in the morning, what is it you want to do? Now it could be contribute to your family, to your community, your neighborhood, to your work. But so really that chapter is kind of about purpose and meaning. How do you find meaning? And I talk about purpose with a little p. It doesn't have to be a big P. Sometimes people think, well, I'm not going to be Mother Teresa. I'm never going to be, someone rich and famous. No, 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 we aren't. But
mhm,
what can we do on a daily basis that really gets us excited or motivated about living? And if we find that, life's just more fun. It's more interesting because we have a focus, we have a direction, we have a passion.
mm. And which is the case story that you share in that chapter, if I may ask?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Let me think. Um,
And I
uh,
get you. I understand you have written a book. Sometimes,
yeah,
sometimes someone will ask you a question. Hey,
yeah.
chapter
Well,
six, you
that's
wrote
that's a
about this,
good.
and I
Okay, so I'm gonna turn that around and say, well, I don't know if I can come up with a specific story right now for that one. I think I do tell a story from Jim Cousins, who's a leadership guru, and he talks about, every day he says, I want to make this a good day. Every day I
Mm,
want to make this a good day. But I want to turn this around, Anthony, and say, you know, people can find my book on Amazon. People can find my book on my website. And on my website, I have a 20% discount from a discount coupon code from the publisher. And Anthony's flashed up my website there. This is pretty, Anthony, this is high tech. I love it. I
yeah.
have a website or not a website. I do have a website. Yes. I have a podcast and I'm not quite so uh, tech savvy. So I'm
Mm,
impressed, Anthony. But if people want to read all the stories, they could find my book.
okay. Yeah, you can always go to jannfreed.com/, a book, and you'll get this book that we are talking about today. The book is Breadcrumb Legacy: How Great Leaders Live a Life Worth Remembering. Now, one of the chapters is is interesting, and I'm wondering, I'm curious, what's in
Okay.
that? And this is chapter 4. It talks about becoming a nobody.
Okay, great. Good for you, Anthony. Um, so I've been fortunate to do two TEDx talks.
Okay.
And they can be found on my YouTube or on any YouTube channel, I guess, or Google, just Google it. But one talk was on embracing death.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a virtual TEDx talk during COVID called Becoming a Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes out of this chapter in my book, chapter 4. And really, becoming a nobody, the whole chapter is about understanding ego, because ego gets in the way of us becoming our best selves.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't understand it, then the ego controls us instead of we controlling the ego.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about understanding ego development and how ego wants to protect us. It wants to, ego wants to say, you're right, you're not wrong. Um, and what we have to understand is when I describe ego, sometimes I describe it as elevators.
Mm-hmm.
And when we sense our ego going up, then we have to control it and say, no, 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 no. And ego, when it's rising, tends to manifest itself in negative behaviors:
Mm-hmm.
micromanaging, defensiveness, over controlling, jealousy, greed, envy. all of those negative um, characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we sense those, and we're human, we have to have an ego or we wouldn't be able to stand up.
Yeah.
So, we have to have an ego, but we have to have a healthy ego and keep it in check.
Mm,
So when we sense those negative behaviors, kind of, jealousy, envy, greed, defensiveness, then we have to say to ourselves, what can I learn from this? Or I need to get that under control, because those are going to really be negative behaviors. And when leaders don't understand that, then that's what can create what we call a toxic environment in the workplace.
mm. Yeah, I get that. So ego become a nobody. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at the end, I think one of the last sentences in that chapter is I say, maybe becoming a nobody is really becoming somebody special.
Mm,
So, think of people, I would say to your, people watching or listeners later to the recording, I would say, ask yourself, who are the people who you really enjoy being around, and you don't, when you're around them, you don't even care how old they are. They could be your age, younger, older, but you're so comfortable around them because they are so comfortable in their own skin, you know. And
mm-hmm.
these are people who make you feel good when you're around them. Um, and you're just comfortable, and these are people who have their ego in check. Then there are others that you're like, whoa, I need to limit my time around them because for some reason I don't feel that comfortable around them. And
Mm-hmm.
these are people who usually have their ego, and usually defensiveness is, I think, a sign of insecurity, that for some reason these people are overcompensating in some way. And now again, we're not perfect people.
Mm-hmm.
So, we make mistakes. And so I also talk about forgiveness, compassion, empathy. I also talk about that in this chapter because, there are times when, our ego has kind of taken over, and we may have to go back and say, I'm really sorry about that. That's not how I want to be remembered. That's not how I want to come off. And
Yeah.
usually if we apologize, people let it go. But
Mm-hmm.
it's when we don't that people remember, I didn't like the way they treated me. Yeah.
And you remember that for the rest of your life.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So for you who's watching or listening, if you want to leave a legacy behind, if you want to live a life that is worth remembering, and especially if you are a leader of an organization or any place, you are even at home. I say you are a leader. You're leading your family. So whatever it is that you're doing, check your ego
Yep.
and yeah, leave a life
Exactly.
of remembering.
Exactly. And,
Mm,
one of the things that I often say, I define a leader as someone who's in the position to influence the lives of others. So
okay.
just like you, I say parents, teachers, coaches, pastors, it's more than just bosses and managers. So if you are in a position to influence the lives of others, then you need to be thinking about, you know, your ego, and you need to be thinking about your purpose and your passion, and how can you build relationships,
Mm,
healthy
yeah,
healthy relationships.
healthy relationships. And then, uh, as you are doing so, I come to chapter number 7 that talks about you enjoying your every sandwich.
Yes. Yes, and one of the bread box stories I tell there is I got that quote from Warren Zevon. He was a singer. He's now passed away, but when he was on the David Letterman show, uh, and he had just been diagnosed with fairly stage 4 cancer. I don't remember what kind of cancer, but it was pretty progressive. And
Mm,
David Letterman said, how are you feeling, or what advice do you have, or what are you thinking? And he says, just enjoy every sandwich.
mhm,
And, that chapter is about gratitude. It's about mindfulness. It's about being in the moment. Really, that chapter is about not worrying about the past, not worrying about the future. We can't change the past. We can't control the future. But just like I'm here with you now, Anthony, we are enjoying the moment and helping others enjoy their moments too.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And we have Jan on the left, Anthony on the right, and in the middle we have the book, and that makes a sandwich. Go enjoy the.
I love that. I love that. That's
Yeah,
very
so
good.
enjoy this minute and go and get the book, Breadcrumb Legacy. How great leaders live a life worth remembering. Now, what has been one of your greatest challenges, either in your career or tell us, even in your writing journey, what has been one of your greatest challenges?
Okay. Well, since we're talking about the book, this is my seventh book. It's only my
Seven.
second. Yeah, it's my seventh book, but it's only my second book where I'm the sole author. I co authored the other five,
Uh-huh.
and they can be found on my website or on Amazon. Um, but it's hard to find a publisher now.
Okay.
The game has changed. I've been
Mm-hmm.
very fortunate to find a traditional publisher. So all of these books, and they're all published by different publishers.
Mm.
So finding a publisher is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are different ways to publish now. Some people self-publish, but since my first career was in higher education, it was really hard for me to self-publish.
Yeah.
But now there are publishing companies called hybrid. And a
Mm.
hybrid publisher is where you pay some money, you're investing, but they're investing. So you're in it together. So where the traditional publisher, they paid for all the publishing costs and they supplied the designer and editor and all of that.
Mm.
With a hybrid publisher, you're in it together. So you're paying some money, not as much as if you had to self-publish,
Okay.
and then they're investing in you and they're supplying the team. If I have another book in me, I will probably do hybrid publishing.
Mm-hmm.
But because it takes a long time to find a publisher.
Mm.
So hybrid is faster, and I think the quality, and I think it's being more accepted. And self-publishing, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing either. It's
Mm.
just it's kind of nice to have that professional team of designers, editors, and all of that at your uh, very handy.
Yeah.
So that's probably a big challenge. And writing a book is, it's not easy, or everybody would do it, although a lot of people are doing it now. Um, but for me, it's a really intellectual exercise where I really want to get this content out in the world because I think it can change lives. I think you look at life differently.
Yes, we all have a story to tell. That's what I say. And it's, if you're able to write, you need. So, how would you think? And because you've offered those options of maybe going to a hybrid publisher or even
Hmm.
self-publish, how would you advise someone who is starting now to go about everything? Which would be your best advice?
I'd probably start calling some hybrid publishers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one, I interviewed several. There's one in, I think, Toronto, Canada, and I think it's called Page Two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's started by two women. It's owned by two women. And I have some colleagues who have used them and been happy with them. I was very happy with them, but then I had a traditional publisher come through. So, but I would probably start with hybrid publishers, and then I would ask, what do they require? I wouldn't get too far into writing the book without talking to some publishers. And usually, even hybrid publishers on their website will say what they require, like a book proposal. They'll give you templates. What do they want in the book proposal? I wouldn't launch writing a book. I would definitely focus on a book proposal. Most book proposal templates are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And once you kind of have an idea of the book proposal, I would start contacting, I would probably start with hybrid publishers.
Mm.
And they range in price. I mean, I spoke with one that was around 10,000, another one 15, another one 25,000. And so then you have to say, well, what's the difference? And usually they will also include for that price a book launch. So they'll
Mm.
help you launch the book and
Mm-hmm.
help you get on podcasts. And so, I would also ask what's included with that price.
Yeah.
That's where I would start, Anthony.
Okay, that's good. So, to everyone who's listening, if you're thinking of writing a book or publishing one, then you've got some tips today from our guest, Jan. Thank you very much for all that.
You're welcome.
Yes, and we are almost coming to the end of the show, but we've still a few minutes. So, for these few minutes, maybe you can tell us in the speaking that you've done, you've
Hmm.
done TEDx, but not only that, you've spoken in many different places. What do you think could be the biggest challenge that the leaders go through? Now we are talking about the leadership that you've met, and they say, "Okay, I've encountered this. Maybe the staff, maybe the technology, maybe what could be one of the greatest challenges that you've witnessed that
Yeah.
leaders go
I
through?"
think we are at unfortunately, I mean, COVID, was and still is devastating to many people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad didn't die of COVID, but I definitely think it affected, and I mean, he was 95 and a half, and I definitely think it
Mm-hmm.
affected. Um, I mean, if COVID hadn't happened, I think he might still be here, but it wasn't. So anyway, so there were many devastating effects of COVID, but one positive thing is I think it really empowered employees.
Mm-hmm.
So employees are saying, we're not going to work for bad bosses. We're not going to put up with unhealthy environments. I don't want to work in a toxic environment. So I think for leaders, leaders too much for too long, leaders have had this kind of command and control. I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm the boss. And in the short run, it does tend to be more efficient, but that burns out fast.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't like to work for that. In fact, I heard something the other day that 30% of new hires at Amazon last less than a year or something. So
Mm-hmm.
something's going on with Amazon that's not very positive. So again, workers, so I think leaders have to change their style. And for those of us, and I want to give a shout out to Howard Behar, Behar. He was one of the uh, I think, international presidents of Starbucks early on. He's always beating the drum of servant leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think finally leaders are recognizing, maybe they don't need me if I'm not really helping getting things done here. And
Yeah.
my definition of a servant leader is someone who clears obstacles. They are not the obstacle. And so in workshops or speeches, I like to say, how many of you have worked for a leader who was the obstacle? Like you had to work around them to get things done. And hands shoot up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a good time to be a really healthy servant leader.
Yeah, we all become servant leaders. We are not there to command, do this, do that, don't do this, don't
No.
do that. We are there to be examples, to show people the way, and not only show them the way, but uh, lead them along.
Yes.
Yeah. Give us a few words that we should always remember, even after we are through with this episode.
Well, I'm going to share some of my favorite words.
Okay.
So I have favorite words: wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and wisdom isn't taught, it's caught.
Mm.
So who are you around where you can catch their wisdom? I love the word curiosity or curious because regardless of age or stage, it really makes, I think, curiosity and creativity make the world go around.
Mm.
So I
Curiosity.
guess I'll close with that. And then what I always say at the end of my podcast, Anthony, is I always say, and may the rest of life be the best of life.
Yeah. Curiosity, creativity. May the rest of your life be the best of your life. We thank you very much, Jan, for coming to our episode. To
Well,
our
thank you for the invitation, Anthony, and may the rest be the best for you.
yes, likewise, and
Thank you.
to all the listeners, the same. May the rest
Thank
of
you.
your life be the best of your life. Co-
Thank you.
Coming from Jan.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So that's it for today. It's been a wonderful time together with our guest Jann Freed. We're talking about leadership and about her.
Thank you.
Go get her new book. Just as a reminder, her website is,
And if they subscribe to my email,
yes.
they'll get a monthly podcast from me where I interview people about wisdom.
That's good. So
Yeah.
rush over to jannfreed.com and subscribe to her newsletter.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's about it for today. This has
Okay.
been, this has been Now Tell Us. I have been your host, Anthony Morore, and together with our guest, a wonderful guest today, Jann Freed, we're saying bye for now, and may the rest of your life be the best of your life. Bye.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, Jann.